This lecture is on the arteries that come off of the descending aorta. So you recall now, you have the heart. You know about that. So you have the heart. And in a completely unproportionate way, I have now drawn in the aorta. So here we have the aorta. You recall then the ascending aorta. You recall then, you recall then the arch, which is here. And then we have the descending aorta. But the descending aorta is very, very long. And you may recall that you have a muscle right here, that big dome-shaped muscle that separates your chest from your abdomen, right up under the lungs. You have that big muscle known as the diaphragm. Here it is. Again, this is strictly diagrammatic, but here we have the diaphragm. That's not where it is in relation to the heart. But anyway, here's the diaphragm. What I'm getting at is that that divides the descending aorta into two separate neighborhoods then. And those two separate neighborhoods then are that which is above the diaphragm, which is the thoracic descending aorta, and then below the diaphragm, you then have the abdominal descending aorta. So let's write that out. So for your descending aorta, then the diaphragm divides the descending aorta then into the thoracic aorta, which is the superior portion. It's still the descending aorta, but it's the thoracic portion of it. And then we have the abdominal aorta, which is the inferior portion of the descending aorta. So the thoracic aorta this provides blood to the intercostal arteries. And the intercostal arteries then bring blood to the spinal cord and the body wall. And this begins the story then of the descending aorta, where you are going to have lots and lots and lots of arteries that then divide off of the descending aorta and bring blood to various different places in the body. So here we have the descending aorta, and we have the intercostal arteries being supplied by the descending thoracic aorta. And then going down near the diaphragm, then we have the superior phrenic arteries, and these then, actually I'll write that in, the superior phrenic arteries, and these then bring blood to the diaphragm. And this is where learning some of the words can really help. Where you see phrenic, that's going to have to do with the diaphragm. So the superior phrenic arteries then are the higher up arteries that bring blood to the diaphragm. And these are found coming off of the thoracic descending aorta. Then we have the abdominal aorta. Still descending. So what I'm going to do now is give you a list of arteries, starting at the top, right under the diaphragm, and working down. So now we have the inferior phrenics. And these then bring blood to the diaphragm. We have the superior and inferior mesenterics. Now you remember the mesenteries. The mesenteries then are those membranes that attach to your small intestine, and they basically, you remember them, they anchor your small intestine to the dorsal body wall, but they also have blood vessels in them. Here they are, the superior and inferior mesenteric arteries, and these then bring blood to the digestive system. Then there are the gonadal arteries, which bring blood to the gonads, your sex organs. Then we have the suprarenal arteries. Now this is one where you need to look at the word carefully. Renal has to do with kidneys, always, but supra basically means above. So then here we have arteries that are bringing blood to the adrenal, again meaning kidney and above, to the adrenal glands, your adrenal glands. These are the ones that produce adrenaline, otherwise known as epinephrine. Then we get to the renal arteries that bring blood to the kidneys, the lumbar arteries that bring blood to the spinal cord and the abdominal wall, and then the iliac arteries that bring blood to the pelvis and the legs. And then one of the branches off of the iliacs. At this point, I should say, at this point, the descending aorta is done because you now have it split into the iliac arteries going to the right and left pelvis and legs, but one of the branches thereafter is the femoral artery, which is a continuation of the external iliac, artery, and this then is what brings blood to your thigh. And that's it for the lecture on the descending aorta.